Hey tech fans, what's going on? Welcome back once again to Tech Tomorrow. Elric here, glad to see you. Now lately, we've seen AMD release a whole bunch of CPUs. In fact, they have an 1800X that has 8 cores, 16 threads. Crazy ass CPU. Competes pretty much almost like the i7-6950, which is a great thing for AMD. But my biggest question about all this stuff is if you're a gamer, and I mean strictly a gamer. You buy your system and you're a gamer. You don't do content creation. You're not doing streaming. You're not doing any of that stuff. And you're definitely not doing workstation stuff for 3D modeling. Do any of those extra cores do you one bit of good? And how many cores do you actually need to play games? Well, I've been doing a lot of research lately, trying to check this out and see, where the actual sweet spot is for cores in gaming and what you actually need to be a competitive gamer. And I have to say that you definitely do not need an i7-6950 and you don't need an 1800X. All those extra cores and stuff are really cool if you actually have a program that takes advantage of those things. But at this point in time, there's no game on the market that I could find that takes advantage of 8 cores and 16 threads. I couldn't even find a 6-core 12-threaded game at this point. Right now, the most you're going to be able to see is 4 cores, 8 threads with hyper-threading, and that's pretty much the sweet spot for gaming. It doesn't really matter whether you buy an AMD CPU or an Intel CPU. There's just no reason for all those extra cores if you're just a gamer. And let's just face it, gamers like their game to look awesome. So the best thing that you can ever do is make sure that you buy yourself a killer-ass GPU and save your money. We've been doing a lot of reviews. And you guys can see from our reviews that the 1600X, if you just overclock it just a wee bit, can totally compete with the 1700 and 1800X at a much, much lower price point. Let's just face it, the 1800X is 500 frickin' bucks. 1600X, about 220 bucks. Big price difference, almost cut in half. And with the gaming numbers being so damn close, why would you pay twice as much to only get a couple more frames per second just to have all these cores and to brag about it? So let's touch upon that real quick. Cores. Everybody says, oh, I like this because it's future proof. What future are we talking about, man? Because honestly, the future's right fucking now. You're living in the now, you're testing things in the now. So what does it matter if your CPU will be competitive more than 5 years down the road? Because more than 5 years down the road, there's going to be so many new CPU releases in that time that these CPUs with all these cores are just going to be like, it's not going to mean jack shit in the end. And since many of you people don't even use programs that access those cores, future-proof, honestly, in my book, I mean, no offense to anybody out there, is just like words to throw out there. Because it's really not. AMD obviously has come to market once again with some new technology and some killer stuff, just like they did when they released the very first CPU that could support 64-bit Windows. Okay, that was fucking awesome, cool. But by the time that 64-bit Windows came out, Intel already had a CPU that beat that CPU across the board. So that's what I'm trying to say about future-proof is. So you guys see the trends. In a year from now, you're going to look back and AMD is already going to have new CPUs that are going to replace those. So you guys are going, oh, it's totally future-proof. Well, it's really not. There'll be new board chipsets, there'll be new technology, and your so-called, future-proof CPU isn't really going to mean anything. In fact, all it means is that the few games that actually do all of a sudden may take advantage of having 8 cores and 16 threads, sure, it'll play them, but is it going to play them as well as the games that are coming out now? Probably not. To be truthful with you, from what I've seen, if you have a dual-core CPU and it has hyper-threading, you can pretty much play any game out there and get great results. Now, there are a few games out there that are starting to take, advantage of those multi-cores. So for me, the sweet spot right now is having a 4-core, 8-thread CPU. Every game out there will be able to play on this. No game out there right now that I know of. If you guys do happen to know of a game that will take advantage of 8, 6, all these extra cores, please let me know down below because I want to learn as well. But after going out and reading a lot of articles and checking out what people have to say around the world, pretty much having a dual core processor with hyper-threading will play all of your games. There might be a few games where those cores will, pop in and help you out, but overall, if we're just going to do a percentage, the percentage of games right now out there still only support greatly 2 cores and hyper-threading. Obviously, the ones that do support more, that's going to be great, but overall in the giant big picture, you just don't need it. So why waste your money buying all these expensive CPUs with all of these cores if you're a gamer? Save your money, get yourself a great GPU, and the CPU, let it be secondary. Because like I said, man, if you can get a hold of yourself a nice dual-core CPU that has hyper-threading, you're going to be okay. Obviously, some of the older, CPUs that came out there, the 8350 and some of those, they bottlenecked quite a bit. In fact, even the i5 and some stuff, you're starting to see it bottleneck. But if you get some of the latest CPUs, you get an i7 7700K or anything like that, you're going to be playing games with absolutely no problems whatsoever. And in fact, the 1600X, which I think right now is kind of the sweet spot for all processors because of what it's made out of and what it does, you can set yourself up with a B350 motherboard, cheap parts, and have yourself a great gaming system for a very, very low price. So at the end of the day, how many cores do you really need? Well, you definitely don't need 6, you don't need 8, you don't need 12. You really only need 2 with hyper-threading. Having 4 is better, but it's not the breaking neck of anything whatsoever. And getting a cap of a few frames per second, big deal. The name of the game is saving money and getting the absolute best performance you can get from that cache. I'm Elric. Thanks for putting up with me. We'll see you guys back on Tech tomorrow for more tech, baby.